Hola, bienvenidos a la InRange TV.
Bueno,
Bueno,
hoy yo estoy un soldado del ejército de España, con mi CETME y también con mi pistol Star. ¿Y tú?
gringo, English. CETME-L.
El fusil de mierda escondida.
Mierda escondida, yes. HK?
That's not
PP9.
Spanish.
This is not Spanish. We've got a mixture of, wait, this isn't German. This isn't Spanish. Ah! Weird. But let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, we're both using our CETME-L rifles today, which we have built thanks to the assistance of Hill and Matt Gunworks.
If you did not watch our build series of us making these guns, we made these guns, welded them, put them together, made them work. If you did not watch that series, please do, because we are now running this at the two-gun match.
Yeah. So hopefully, having said that, they'll actually work right.
We will find out. Now, mine has some hacks in it, but we'll get into that.
Now, the reason we called them mierda escondida, which is Spanish for hidden crap, is because these had a pretty tremendously poor reputation in the Spanish military. A lot of quality control issues in the original fabrication of these guns.
And I ran into problems with my build that I thought was my build, but it wasn't. It was stuff that we found out was a problem with the gun in general.
Like bad springs.
Bad springs. You can look on the internet. It's not hard to find actual guys that use these in the field, and they had constant problems with springs. In fact, we had comments on our videos about it. Like, for example, they ended up putting washers in the buffer assembly to try and increase the spring pressure. I used an 8mm Lebel case to increase spring pressure.
A normal sort of fix.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has 8mm fired Lebel cases laying around.
Yeah.
The hammer wasn't striking the primer hard enough. I replaced it with an HK53 spring, which was tantalizingly close to fitting properly, but not quite. I had to mess with it so it wouldn't bind. But stuff like that to make this one work. You were lucky. Your springs seemed to be okay, although you've had a couple light strikes.
Couple, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you won't today.
I hope not.
So we have a difference. I'm running the L, which you can see is in this incredibly awesome tactical Krylon camo job with iron sights. The iron sights are terrible, by the way, but they are usable. And you've got the LV.
Yep, I've got the LV with a 4-power Spanish Inosa scope on it. In theory, I have backup iron sights, but they're they're right on the borderline of useless when you've got the scope mounted, because the scope mounting bolts actually just about obscure the rear sight picture.
Yep, I don't want to go over too much that we already talked about in our build video series, which is why I'd recommend to watch them, but they only take USGI mags, but there's no issue with that. These are 5.56 guns. Essentially what happened was they did not go with the HK gun because they didn't want to license it, right?
I think so. They had these pretty much halfway through development when they decided to switch from 308 to 5.56.
It's kind of funny when you think about it, because CETME was built by World War II German engineers using a right at the end of World War II delayed roller design, which would have been the STG-45. They went to Spain, made the CETME in 308. The Germans saw the CETME post-war, liked it, adopted it as the G3. Then the Spaniards wanted to go to 5.56 NATO, but didn't want to license the gun that was originally theirs from the Germans that now had the license from the Germans that designed it in World War II. So they made their own, which they didn't do that great a job of.
And replaced them with HKG-36s.
Back to German.
Oops. Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to start off with a bunch of 60-second stages today. They're all going to be fast and furious. We've got some 100-yard stuff that should be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we'll see how these two guns fare up against one another. And more importantly, did the guns we built ourselves run through the match?
We'll find out.
This is the place they'll fail.
Yeah, it is.
Timer. Boop. Gun breaks. All right. Let's move on.
Buen suerte.
All right, this is technically stage 3, but for us, this is our first stage today. Shooter begins standing in start box, which is right there. Rifle fully loaded. Pistol will not be loaded. At buzzer, shooter will go to the first cone, which is over here to my left, and get one hit on each rifle target. There's steel rifle targets at about 100 and 125 yards. Shooter will then move to the second cone, get one hit on each rifle target. Shooter will then move to cone 3, get one hit on each rifle target. All of this has to be done from prone. Prone is the only firing position on this stage. Shooter will table their rifle, climb over the window, reacquire their rifle, and finish with 2 hits from cone 4 on each steel target, or 1 hit on each steel target, 2 hits total.
¿Quiero listo?
Sí.
Colocarse. Good. Unload and show clear.
Bueno!
All right. I have this awesome clamp-on Spanish CETME-L bipod.
Sure that's not for tooth removal?
Doubles for tooth removal.
Oh, excellent.
So we're going to set that on there, and we'll see how this goes.
Stand by. Unload and make. All right, so we just completed what was our first stage, but what is technically stage 3 of the match, which is not long range. It's 100 yards, but with a 60-second part time and a bunch of movement.
Yeah.
That's psychologically challenging.
I don't think a whole lot of people are going to be completing this stage all that much faster than we do.
No, or completing it at all. Right. We saw some timeouts already.
If you do much missing at all, it's just over.
So anyways, my gun ran fine, the 8mm bell case. The magic of the French unfired 8mm bell case continues, the gun ran reliably.
Yep. Mine also ran perfectly, but...
How'd it go for you?
Well, these targets were actually a little too big and too close for the scope and the bipod to be optimal.
Okay.
I
don't know about optimal. It didn't give you an advantage.
You can pull your earplug out.
It didn't give you an advantage.
Correct. It did. I think it might have been a detraction, honestly, on these two. The reason being the scope has a fairly small field of view. It's not a particularly fantastic scope. And so I know I lost time trying to find the targets in the scope, which was something you were able to do faster with the irons, even the not fantastic irons that these rifles have. And then the bipod at the same time, because these targets were a fairly wide angle apart from each other, Carl was able to just pivot the rifle from one to the other very easily. I had to drag the advantage of this bipod is it's got these nice pointy feet and it's got this pivoting swivel thing, so you can stick them in the ground so they won't move. Well, I had to move them because I had a fairly substantial
interesting point.
change
I didn't
of
think of
direction.
that. Good point.
Yeah, so I felt myself dragging the bipod along. Now, had these targets been half the size or twice the distance, I think our scores would have been reversed. I think then this and this really would have been a help to me.
Maybe. It's interesting to note, and I found this in many matches, there are times where magnification does not help.
Absolutely.
And we've had that happen to me here at the match before it happened to you. And the field of view of your Enosa,
yes,
I always say it wrong.
Very good.
I always say Espinosa, is really incredibly narrow for what is a relatively modern scope. Yeah. Like the German ZF4, I swear, I think it has a better field of view. I'm not doing this to be a jerk. It really does.
Yeah,
and
we need to look at those side by side and see.
The scope from the 1980s it's a very much soda straw field of view. And so when you're moving or transitioning from target to target, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yep.
And so, lesson learned, irons still have their place. Now, and this is where red dots excel.
Exactly, yeah. Now, one thing that I did see was once I had the target in my field of view, it was super easy because with a 4-power scope at this range, that target was like half of the field of view of the optic, and it just wave it in there somewhere and pull the trigger, and it made it hit.
Although that goes to tell you, actually gives reference point to the people watching this, that the field of view is so narrow that a full-size IDPA steel plate at 125 yards is half.
I may be exaggerating a bit, but it was a huge...
It took up a substantial portion of your field of view. So essentially a man-sized target at 125 yards consumed a good portion of your field of view.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was fun.
So I was 46 seconds, you were 50.
Yeah. We're pretty close.
Pretty close, but more importantly, the guns we manufactured by hand
Still work.
worked.
And they're zeroed, and they hit, and everything.
Yay! Let's move on.
Alrighty.